Hello, and thank you for joining. My name is Dave Ferruolo, and today in this video, we will be going over the Child Support Guidelines as set forth by the State of New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Child Support Services. To help you understand how New Hampshire child support is calculated, we will first be doing a mock-up using the Child Support Guidelines Worksheet. Then, at the end, we will check our work using the Department of Health and Human Services Child Support Calculator. The Child Support Guidelines Worksheet may be obtained online at the Department of Health and Human Services Division of Child Support Services website on their Forms page, or you may get it at any courthouse in the Family Division. To calculate your child support, you will also need the Child Support Guideline Calculation Tables, which also can be acquired at the Department of Health and Human Services website. It will be a good idea to also use a pencil and have a calculator handy. So let's get started with the Child Support Guidelines Worksheet. The first thing you'll need to do is fill in the court name. For this purpose, I will be using the 4th Circuit Court, Family Division in Laconia, New Hampshire. Your case number will be provided for you by the court and is located at the top of any court document that you received, either with your divorce decree, your child support, or your uniform support order. The next thing is in the matter of. Typically, it's the matter of your name and your spouse's name. For this case, we'll be using John and Jane Doe. The next thing you'll do is you'll fill in your child's full name and date of birth, and the total number of children will go underneath. Your child support percentage in box number 2 is outlined in the parentheses below. For one child, it's 25%. For 2 children, it's 33%. 3 children is 40%, or 4 or more is 45%. Box 3 and 4 is the obligors and the obligees medical support reasonable cost. This number is figured by multiplying 4% of the monthly gross income rounded to the nearest dollar. Now let's move on to the payment calculations. There are 4 columns under the payment calculations part of the Child Support Guidelines Worksheet. The first column are the items that will be considered when we are talking about how much child support will be paid. The second column is the obligor, or the person who is going to pay. The obligee is the third column, which is the person who is going to receive. And then the last column is the combined income, or the combined amounts for both obligor and obligee. We will continue with our mock-up of Jane and John Doe with line item 5, monthly gross income. This is the amount that is made each year or month before taxes and deductions are taken out. In column 1, obligor, John Doe's monthly income is going to be $2,400 for the purpose of this example, and Jane Doe's income for the purpose of this example is going to be $1,500 monthly. Line item 6A is the court administrative order support for the children. In our example, we will say that the court has ordered the obligor to pay $300 a month to the obligee. So John is going to now be paying $300 a month to Jane, and this was ordered by the court before the mediation process began, or before the Child Support Guideline Worksheet process began. Line 6B is self-employment taxes paid. If either John or Jane are self-employed, they would put in their boxes here 50% of the actual self-employment taxes that they paid. In our example, we will have no self-employment taxes, as we will consider John and Jane as both employed by a company and receiving a paycheck. Line 6C is mandatory retirement. If there are any mandatory retirements that are paid out of your paycheck directly to a retirement fund, these amounts would be put in line 6C. We will be using $200 for John and $100 for Jane. Line item 6D addresses the actual state income taxes paid. For the purposes of our example, we will not be using any income taxes. Line item 6E is allowable child care expenses of the obligor. We will be using $300. This will be if John has to pay for child support because he is working or at any work-related activity that will directly affect his parenting time and he needs to have care for his child or children. Line item 6F addresses medical support for the children. In our case here, we will say that John has to pay $250 to cover medical expenses and insurance expenses for his child. Line 6G simply is John's total deductions. So we add lines 6A through 6F to get this number, which in this case is $1,050 for John and $100 for Jane. Line 7 is the adjusted monthly gross income, which is our monthly gross income minus our deductions. We will therefore subtract lines 6G from line 5. We will come up with John, his monthly gross income, adjusted gross income, is $1,350, and Jane's will be $1,400. The total combined gross monthly income, adjusted gross monthly income for both Jane and John, the obligor and obligee, is $2,750. Line item 8 is the child support guideline amount. For this, you're going to have to use the Child Support Guideline Calculation Table, which is a separate document altogether. Again, this document can be found on the state's Department of Health and Human Services Child Services website. The Child Support Guideline Calculation Table can look confusing at first. It's about 100 pages of lines, columns, and numbers, but it really is quite simple. Let's go through it line by line so we can understand the document and are able to use it correctly. The first column is the combined adjusted monthly gross income. You will see that this is in a range. The second column is the median combined adjusted gross income. What they do is they take the range and they get the median number and they put that in this column. The third column is the tax deductions based on current tax code. And then the fourth column is the net income, which would be based on the median income minus the taxes that will be paid based on the current year's tax code. The last columns, which is the child support guideline amount, is the amount paid based on that net combined income for how many children you have. And the last column is broken up into 4 columns: 1 child, 2 children, 3 children, or 4 children. For our example, John and Jane Doe, the obligor and the obligee's combined monthly income is $2,750. What we will have to do is go to the Child Support Guideline Calculation Table in column 1 and look down column 1 at about page 6 until we find where $2,750 falls. We find in column number 1, the combined adjusted monthly gross income column, that $2,750 is actually a number located in that column in the range of $2,750 to $2,759. In the second column, the adjusted gross monthly combined income will be $2,755. After the taxes, the net income will be $2,339.84, which will bring the child support guideline amount for the combined income amount of $2,750 to $584.96. So in line 8 on our Child Support Guideline Worksheet, we will fill out $584.96 in line 8 under the Child Support Guideline amount. Line items 9A, 9B, and 9C are allowable expenses for the obligee. So Jane's allowable child care expenses, line 9A, we will say will be $75. Her medical support for her children, we will say will be $100. And the total allowable obligee expenses are $175. Line 10, the total adjusted monthly gross income for each would be $1,350 for our obligor, $1,225 for our obligee, which would be a combined amount of $2,575. So to recap what we've learned so far, In line 8, we have learned that the child support guideline amount for this couple will be $584.96. We have also learned that the adjusted gross monthly income for the couples are $1,350 for the obligor and $1,275 for the obligee, which is a combined amount of $2,575 for the couple. Now, line 11, the proportional shared amount of income. Simply what this means is how much each individual will pay of that $584.96 child support guideline amount. So, to determine each individual's proportional shared amount of income, we take the individual's adjusted monthly gross income and we divide it by their combined monthly gross income. In this case, the obligor, John, makes $1,350 a month. We divide that number by $2,575 a month, which is John and Jane's combined monthly gross income. Dividing this out would give us 0.52, which means John's proportional share of that child support guideline amount of $584.96 would be 52%, which in line 12 equates to $306.68. Jane, the obligee, would then divide $1,225 by $2,575, which would give us 47.57% of that $584.96 child support guideline amount, which brings us to $278.28. In this scenario, the obligor, John, would be paying $306.68 to the obligee, Jane, for his proportional share of the monthly child support. There is one more step. At the bottom of the sheet, the ability to pay calculation must be done before the final numbers are completed. Line 13 is the self-support reserve, which in the state of New Hampshire is $1,044. This amount is the poverty line for a household of one as determined by the state of New Hampshire. We have already determined in line 12 that the obligor, John, must pay $306.68 to the obligee, Jane. However, we must use the self-support reserve and his adjusted monthly gross income to determine if John in fact has enough money to pay that $306 without going below the state's determined line of poverty, which is $1,044. So to determine if John, the obligor, can pay this amount of money to Jane, we take his total adjusted gross monthly income, which is line 10, and we subtract the self-support reserve, which is line 13, $1,044. When we subtract this, we get the income available for support, which is line 14, which would be $306. John does in fact have the ability to pay $306.68 that he needs to support his children at that 52% proportional share. So John, the obligor's income available for support after subtracting the self-support reserve from his adjusted monthly gross income is $306. The parental support obligation, as outlined in line item 12, is $306.68. So line 15, the monthly support payable, would be $306. Line 16, the child support order, would be $306 because we round to the nearest whole dollar. So as a recap, to determine a final child support order, we must have both individuals' monthly gross income and monthly expenses. Using these numbers, we can determine the child support guideline amount, and then we can figure out the proportion of that amount that each individual must be responsible for. Once the parental support obligation is determined, we can then ascertain the final child support order. I hope this instructional overview helped you better understand the Child Support Guideline Worksheet. The Child Support Guideline Worksheet may be found on the State of New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services Division of Child Support Services website. The form is in PDF fillable format, and therefore when you put in your information, it will automatically do the numbers for you and give you the child support order. You will still have to find the child support guideline amount using the child support guidelines charts. However, it'll be much easier than doing it longhand. There is also a quick, simple, and effective online calculator that can be used to come to the same result that we came to in this tutorial. That calculator can also be found on the Division of Child Support Services website. My name is Dave Ferruolo. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you found this workshop on child support guidelines informative.